Welcome to the Westcott Crochet channel and welcome to this rose raglan top. If you like what you see, let me know with the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe and the notification bell. Any yarn recommending a 4mm hook can be used for this project. You will need all three sizes shown here, and you'll also need these items. I'm going to start with my 3mm hook and a slip knot. And I'm going to make a chain the width that I want my collar to be, bearing in mind it will contract a little bit when worn as it stretches widthwise. So I'm going to chain 12. And that's 12. And now at the end of each row I'm going to chain an extra one to turn. I'm not going to work into those turning chains. So from the second loop from my hook I'm going to make a single crochet. And then I'm going to put a single crochet in every chain all the way down, and that's row 1. At the end of row 1 I'm going to chain 1 to turn again, not working into that turn chain. I'm going to work the back loops only, so front loop, back loop, the one furthest away, make a single crochet, and into the back loops all the way down, one single crochet in each, and that's row 2. Okay, from here again we chain 1 to turn, and we're going to repeat row 2 over and over until my band reaches all the way around my head. It needs to stretch around my head, but it needs to sit nicely on the neck. So stretching it to its absolute limit, I'm going to work in rows until I get the width that I need. The width that I needed turned out to be 64 rows, and here it is. So it's worn folded in half, like this. Unfolded, it measures about 30 centimetres. So it sits nicely on the neck, but stretches around my head. It's important that it can go over your head when you join it up. Make sure that you work an even number of rows. That's important for a calculation we do in a minute. If you're not sure how many rows you've worked, just lay your piece down flat. The tail end, the start end, should be at the bottom down here, and your hook will be at the top over here. So that's an even number. As I come to join up my collar, I'm going to work on the outside, the side that will be seen when worn. The raglan or top-down pattern works with a seam all the way down the back, so I'm just going to continue that down the collar. So joining the two sides, I can see that I have the remaining loops from my start chain and the 2 loops from the last row that I just worked. So starting with the start chain, I go into the remaining loop that's left from there on that side, and then into the last row that I worked I take the back loop from the first stitch there, and I'm going to pull through everything for a slip stitch. So one more time, into the remaining loop left from my start chain, into the back loop from the last row, and slip stitch. What that will do is it gives us a nice seam. It keeps the pattern going and gives us almost an invisible seam. I've just changed up to a 4mm hook. I was working with a 3mm, and I'm just going to work a row of single crochet all the way around the base of my collar. I'll ultimately be working with a 5mm hook, and I just find it easier, rather than going straight from a 3 to a 5, just to have that transition size in between to make the stitches easier to work. So I've chained 1 to build up my yarn. I'm not going to work into that chain just now, and I'm going to put 1 stitch at the end of each row. The easiest way to do that with the back loop single crochet, we have a dip and then a bump, a dip and a bump, dip and a bump. So if I put a single crochet in every dip, at the top of every dip and the top of every bump, then I've got it covered. I'm actually working in my tail end here. You don't have to do that. It just makes one less thing to do at the end. So every dip, every bump, all the way around. And then when I get to the start, back around to where I started, I'm actually just going to slip stitch into that chain one that I did at the beginning. I've made it all the way around my base. I had 64 rows, so I have 64 stitches. Just make sure you still have your even number of stitches. Next, I need to locate the centre point along the other side. The centre point along the back is where the seam is. So for the front, I just count half my stitch count, so 32 for me. I had 64, so count 32 around, mark that point. 32 around the other side, mark that point. My centre point is directly between two stitches because I have an even number, as should you. You'll notice I have 4 stitches marked here. I took my entire stitch count of 64 and divided it by 6, then rounded to the nearest whole number. That whole number is where the marker goes. So from the centre seam, I just count across. For me it was 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 into the 10th. Flip it over and do the same on the other side. From the centre seam, 10 across, 10 across. These 4 points mark the separation between 2 shoulders, along with the front and the back. Moving on now to my 5mm hook. Get rid of this centre stitch marker, I don't need that anymore. Keeping the other 4. So from here I'm going to be working in rounds, and I'm going to be working a cross single crochet. It has to be worked in rounds and it has to go in the same direction each time. So I've just chained 1 and I'm going to mark that stitch, because this is the stitch I'm going to slip stitch into to close off the round, and I want to make sure I get the right one. So cross single crochet, very much the same as a regular single crochet, except for one small difference. You still insert your hook as normal, whereas you'd normally go in front with your yarn and pull down, you go up and around with your hook and pull it down. So in you go as normal, don't do that. You go up and around the outside and then pull through a loop as normal to close off. A bit weird to start with, but you do get used to it. After a few stitches it becomes second nature. You won't see the cross stitch forming until you've worked a few rounds, but it will show up as long as you keep going in the same direction. So I'm just going to work now until I get to this first stitch marker. Oops. Okay. Another couple of stitches. One more. And here we are. So at the marked stitch, I'm going to add another cross single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1, chain another one, and then add another cross single crochet. And that's what I'm going to do into every marked stitch. Going to add a stitch, chain 2, add another stitch, all into that marked stitch. So following on from there, we go into the very next stitch after the marked stitch, and we do another cross single crochet. I'm going to leave my stitch markers where they are for now, just to make sure I can easily identify where I've made the little chain 2 when I come round for the next round. So keep working along with your cross stitch, remembering to go pick up your loop in that different way. Next stitch marker, enter your stitch, chain 2, enter your second stitch. All the way back round at the start or the finish, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm going to slip stitch into this marked stitch as I mentioned before. I've marked it so that I don't accidentally work into this first stitch on the round, because that would cause my seam to go off on a tangent and I don't want that. So slip stitch into the marked stitch. But you know, I'm actually just going to take this out because it's hard enough to slip stitch into these as it is without an obstacle. So out it goes. Oops. And pull through. Finish the slip stitch. There we go. Chain one. Add the marker back into the new chain so that I can find it at the end of this round. And now continuing in the same direction, not changing direction for the cross stitch to work. Going to keep going around from the first stitch around until I get to the chain 2 space that I worked on the previous round. And here I am at the chain 2 space. Into that space I'm going to make a cross single crochet, then I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to make another cross single crochet into the chain 2 space. Oops, there we go. And I can get rid of that because I can see now that I've formed a little point at the corner here, so it's quite easy to locate next time around. So into the very next stitch I carry on with the cross single crochet, and I'm going to keep doing this in rounds now. Every time I get to a chain 2 space I'm going to make a stitch, chain 2, make another stitch, and then I'll continue on until I get to the next chain 2 space, closing off the round with a slip stitch. I've finished up round 2, I've slip stitched into a marked stitch, chained 1 and marked the new stitch, and I now have this odd looking thing. So if I fold it flat like this, you can just see the 4 corners are starting to extend downwards, and they'll continue to do that. So make sure you don't miss the stitch. After you've worked your corner, you stitch, chain 2 stitch, make sure you work that very first stitch as you come out of your corners, otherwise it will start to go misshapen. I'm going to continue working the round, so I'm going to make a stitch, chain 2 and stitch again into every chain 2 space, work around, and then to the next chain 2 space I'll stitch, chain 2 and make another stitch. And I'll just keep going around and round until the shoulder section extends to a point where from the base of my neck to the top of my shoulder where a bra strap would sit, it needs to reach that point. Just trying to make sure to avoid certain pitfalls, namely working the corners and the start and finish of each round so that there's no extra stitches being added or stitches being lost for that matter. So I'm just going to try and show a little closer. If we look at the corner here, I've got still to work 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then there's the chain 2 on that previous round. So we need to make sure we're not working into the top of that chain. We're actually working into the chain space. There's the second chain, and then there's the first stitch after the corner. So work the last 2 stitches. So 1 and 2, and then we're into the corner, into the chain 2 space. So do the stitch, chain 2 and stitch, and then make absolutely sure that you pick up this first stitch after the corner, because it can become obscured by the stitch that you've just made. So just pull those to one side and make sure that it's not hiding under there, and make sure you pick up that stitch as you turn that corner. And then you just 1 stitch in each until the next corner. So the other potential pitfall is the start and finish of each round. Again, I've stopped just 2 stitches short of the end, and the problem is that on this seam we have the chain 1 at the start and it's interlocking with the slip stitch at the end. And we need to make sure that you don't work into those 2 stitches other than to build up at the beginning and to slip stitch at the end. So I've just got 2 stitches to work here, and then it doesn't look very much on this one unfortunately, but it can sometimes look like a stitch, the slip stitch from the previous round. So you need to make sure you don't try and force a stitch into there at the end. So I'll just work these 2 stitches to close the round. I'll just come a little bit closer. I'm sorry, it's not focusing very well. But there's the slip stitch from the previous round. So just take this out and slip stitch to close. And it'll be more clear after this, hopefully. There. So there's the slip stitch, and that's the stitch we want to make sure we don't work into at the end of this round. So chain 1 and mark that stitch. And then your first stitch for the next round is right here. Again, you can just see the loop before it, which was the chain 1 that we've slip stitched into. That's not your first stitch. This is your first stitch. I hope that's clear. I'm sorry the camera's not very good. It's just easier to show when you've worked a few rows what the seam will look like. I'm back and I've worked 19 rows across, well, this is just the shoulder section. So it just comes out to the top of my shoulder where a vest or bra strap would sit, not to the very edge. So 10 centimetres from the collar to the edge I have, and as I said, that took me 19 rows, but everybody's might be different. So next I'm going to do something a little bit different. So I've kicked off the round in the usual way, chained 1, marked the stitch, and I've worked across with the cross stitch over to the first corner, and I'm going to tackle that corner in the usual way with a stitch, with a chain 2, and with another stitch. And here's the difference. As I turn the corner, I'm going to put 2 stitches into this first stitch. And this is working the first shoulder side. And I'm going to put 2 stitches the whole way along this edge into every stitch. So I'm effectively doubling my stitch count just along this edge. So that's 1 and 2, 1 and 2, last 2, stitch 1, stitch 2, 1, and the last one, 2. And I'm back at the corner. So got a weird little crinkly effect all down this one side. So the corner I tackle in exactly the same way. In we go. 1 stitch, chain 2, second stitch, and I'm going to turn this corner and just make 1 stitch in each stitch the whole way along this, what is the front side, till I get to corner number 3. Here at corner number 3, going in with my usual. So stitch, chain 2, second stitch, and we're rounding the corner into the second shoulder. So as we did with the first shoulder, I'm going to put 2 stitches in each stitch all the way along on this side till I reach corner 4. I'm just approaching corner 4, last few increases, and here we are. So that's the second side, second shoulder side. So rounding the corner as usual, stitch, chain, chain, stitch. And the second stitch. And then you've probably guessed, around the corner, one stitch in each, all the way along, and this last half of this side, and slip stitch into the chain 1. At the end of that round we now have this. I have 2 flat sides, front and back, and 2 crinkly sides for the shoulders. So I'll just fold that flat. I'm going to keep working in rounds because I need to increase the width of this front section. Ultimately I'm going to be joining the 2 sides, so we're joining these 2 corners and these 2 corners, so I just need to increase the width. So I'm going to take a measurement around my body, the widest part, and divide that measurement by 2. That's the width that I need across here. So I'm going to keep working in rounds until I get that width. For my width I needed to create 47 centimetres across this front section. So I've worked another 10 rounds since the increase here, and I'm just going to take a measurement. If I just give it a little stretch, not too much, I have got 46 centimetres, which is perfect. I'm just 1 centimetre short, which allows me for a join of 3 chains on either side. I've so far worked 30 rows since the collar. So I did 19 initially, then there was an increase row, and now I've just worked another 10 to create the width. So with that width created, I can join the 2 sides. Start the round in the usual way, chain 1, mark the stitch, just worked across to the first corner, just 1 cross stitch in each, and into that first corner I'm going to put 2 cross stitches. 1 and 2. Then I'm going to grab up my second corner, so corner 2, and I'm going to make sure that they're facing the right way, so the crosses need to be facing towards me on both sides to make sure that the right sides are facing outside and the insides facing inside. So I'm going to chain 3 and then directly into corner 2 I'm going to make 2 cross stitches. And from there we have a little join, and I just continue as normal along this edge, which is the front edge, 1 stitch in each. So here I am at corner 3, and again I'm going to make 2 cross stitches directly into that corner. I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to grab hold of corner 4. Again, make sure that the crosses are facing me, so I've got the right side. And I'll make 2 cross stitches directly into corner 4. Oops, sorry. And 2. And then just continue to work 1 stitch in each to finish the round. Now I have this. all joined up. This is the new round, and it's actually round, no more corners. So from here, I'm just going to go round and round and round until I get the length that I need for the body. Still chain one, still slip stitch to close, but just going around in circles from there. So I'll just do the next one with you because it's a little bit different. So chain one, mark the chain already. I've worked up to the first corner. I'm just the last 2 stitches to go just before we're joined with the chain. So into those last 2 stitches, there's no great story here, just put 2 stitches above the top, the last 2 stitches. There's 1 and 2, and now we have the chain. So I'm just going to work across the chain, just put 1 stitch into each chain, if it will let me. There we go. There's 1, and number 2, giving me all kinds of issues. Sorry, my yarn is like 100 ply and it just keeps splitting all the time. It's giving me all kinds of problems. Can't give in, and I got it. Okay, so that's 2. And number 3. Got it. Oh, it's a lot more trouble than it should have been. Okay, so from here, just 1 stitch in each. All the way across. And then I'll get to the next chain. Work across the chain. Pick up on the other side. And work all the way. Oh, no, that's the sleeve. Don't do that. Work all the way around the bottom. So yeah, don't take any sleeve detours. Around the bottom, I'll just fold it flat so you can see. Okay, and then slip stitch to join. I successfully made it all the way around, no detours up the sleeves, and I've now got these nice stitches to work into, no more chains. So I can just concentrate on building the body down from here. Before I do that, I'm just going to try this on and make sure that I can get it on. I haven't made any wild miscalculation on the width. So pull up a big old loop, or maybe add an actual stitch marker, not a hair grip, just so it doesn't unravel. Try it on carefully. It's not going to look good. It's going to look a bit weird and misshapen at this stage, so don't worry about that. It will take shape as you work further down. Just make sure at this point that you can get it on. If you can't, and you haven't got the width you need to work some extra rows onto your square, and then just come back and work these joins again. Assuming you can get it on, everything's great. You can now just focus on the length. So I'm going to work down in rounds until I get the length that I need. I'm thinking about 40 centimetres from here, from the collar. I am going to have a fairly sizable bottom chunk, a bottom band, which I'm going to work in the same method as the collar. So I'm going to crack on with that and I'll come back. I am back from where I joined across here, separating sleeves from body. I've gone around and around and around 49 times. So I now have 40 centimetres from the collar up here down to the bottom, or the first bottom. I'm going to add a second bottom. So I've got 80 rows in total from the collar. So the initial 30 rows for the square. I had a joining row, and then I've just worked another 49. So 80 in total, which for me, as I say, measures 40 centimetres. So from here, I'm going to add a bottom band, and for that I need to switch to my 3mm hook to match what I did in the collar. After I finished working the length of my body, I didn't cut and tie my yarn, I just worked straight down with a chain that I wanted the length of my bottom band to be. I wanted about 12 centimetres, so I've chained 30, It's actually about 14 centimetres, but there will be a little bit of contraction as I work my way around, so I added a little bit extra for that. So I'm just going to pop my hook back in, and then I'm going to chain 1 to turn at the end here and work back down this chain with a row of single crochet. So let's spin around, getting into position. Oh, my yarn's making a break for it. Okay, so I'm going to chain 1 to turn, and then I'm going to make 1 single crochet, second loop from my hook, just the regular kind, not the cross kind. So 1 regular single crochet into each chain all the way down back to the base. Here I am at the base. I had 30 chains, I have 30 stitches. Make sure that you work them all. So I'm going to slip stitch into the base. So if I were working another round on the body, this would be my next stitch. So I'm going to slip stitch into that next stitch to attach my base band to the bottom. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So 2 times in total. There we go. And then I'm going to spin around because I'm going to work back up this new section with back loop single crochet. So the first 2 stitches from my hook are the slip stitches that I just worked, so I don't work back into those again. So 1, 2, and this guy is my first stitch. So 1, 2, 3, back loop single crochet into this fella. And then I'm going to back loop single crochet all the way down. I'm going to chain 1 at the end, and I'm going to back loop single crochet all the way back again towards the base, where I'll slip stitch again on camera. Here I am, still got 30 stitches, count your stitches. Make sure you don't lose any. It's much easier to lose them at this end than you'd think, so make sure you work them all. Right, so every time we come to the base, I'm going to slip stitch twice. I can see this was the last one that I worked. It's got a stitch on it. So into the next stitch with 1 slip stitch, into the slip stitch after that with the second slip stitch. That's hard to say. And then I'll spin back and work up this new section. So that's what I'm going to do for some time to come now. Just back loop single crochet all the way to the end, chain 1, back loop single crochet back down to the base, slip stitch twice into the base and work all the way around, slip stitching around the edge 2 times each time, and go all the way around until I get right back to here where I will join the 2 sides. I made it all the way around with my bottom band, working my 30 stitches. I have 1 stitch left to slip stitch into the base, and then I can join the 2 sides. So on this side I have the start chain, the last loop from the start chain, same as was the situation with the collar. Over on the other side I have the 2 loops from the final row. So it's important that I finish up here so that I can seam down in this direction. Don't want to finish at the bottom. So if you have 2 stitches up here to slip stitch into, then slip stitch them both. That's fine. 1 or 2, doesn't matter. So just working that last slip stitch. As I say, if you have 2, work your 2. And there we go. Right, and then I've just got to twist myself around and get into position to make the join. I'm going to join on the outside edge, the side that will be seen when worn, same as I did with the collar. So last loop, the remaining loop from the start chain, into there on this side, into the back loop from the row that I've just finished on this side, and pull through a loop for a slip stitch. Again, into the start chain, back loop, slip stitch through everything. Work that way the whole way down until you've seamed up this bottom band. Okay, all done. Chain one, cut the yarn, whip it through and tighten that up. Next, just need to do a little bit of extra work on the sleeve. So going back to the arm opening and the bottom of the arm opening, I'm going to reattach the yarn. So here are the 3 stitches where I joined the 2 corners. There we are, 1, 2, 3. Into the second stitch, so the middle one, I'm going to insert my hook and reattach. In we go, pop on a slip knot, pull that through. I'm going to chain one and mark the stitch because I'm backing round now and I need to slip stitch into that chain one to close the round. So the first stitch I'm going to encounter is the second of the chains that I joined with, so there'll be one on either side. Also on either side we come to the chain 2 space, which was the former corner before we joined, so 1 stitch in there. Oh, I haven't actually mentioned I'm back on the 5mm hook and I'm working the cross stitch again, so sorry about that. 5mm hook, cross stitch. I'm working in a clockwise direction to keep the cross pattern going. So 1 stitch in each all the way around, and you'll get back to the chain 1, slip stitch into there. So next round I'll chain 1, mark the stitch and keep working in this way. This is the new round around the arm opening. So keep going around and around until I get the length I want for my sleeve. So I'm going to go, I think, about halfway down the upper arm for this first part of the sleeve. I'll let you know how many rounds that is when I come back. So I worked another 30 rounds onto my sleeve and it's about 24 centimetres. So from here I'm going to do a rapid reduction and really cinch this sleeve in. For the next round I'm going to work 2 stitches together all the way around, and that's going to really bring in the sleeve. So the decrease round, chain 1 and mark the stitch in the usual way, and to decrease I insert my hook into stitch number 1 and pull up a loop, into stitch number 2, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. So again, into the first stitch and pull up the loop, second stitch, pull up the loop, pull through all 3. I'm going to do this the whole way around, making 1 stitch out of every 2. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the chain to close. Then I'm going to follow up with a regular round, 1 stitch in each just to even things out. Again, slip stitch in to close. After those 2 rounds, the decrease round and the regular round, I now have this. It's cinched in a fair bit, but I want to go a fair bit more. So I need to grab a tape measure and take some measurements. I'm going to measure around my wrist and around the upper arm where the sleeve currently reaches. So I need to find a happy medium between those 2 measurements. That said, I'm actually going to favour the smaller wrist measurement, because I want a good amount of poofiness in this top section of the sleeve. So I want to really pull that in as much as I can. So working on my numbers in centimetres, I had 16 on the wrist and 28 on the upper arm, and that's a difference of 12 between those 2 measurements. So in order to favour the wrist, I've gone just for a third of that difference, and added that to my wrist measurement. So a third of the difference of 12 gives me 4. Add that to my 16 wrist measurement and I get 20 centimetres. So I think that gives me just a happy balance. So I've not got a baggy wrist and it doesn't pull it in too tight on the arm, but it gives me a nice amount of poofiness on the top section. With my 20 centimetres in mind, I go back to the bottom band. I'm going to work the lower part of the sleeve in the same way with the same hook size, working up and down in rows and slip stitching into the base. So if I take a tape measure to this bottom band, I can work out how many stitches I need around that lower sleeve section. So I just lay out my measure on here, 20 centimetres, and count how many rows are within that measurement. So with this pattern, every ridge equals 2 rows. So for my 20 centimetres, I counted 21 ridges, so I need 42 rows or 42 stitches along that lower section. So going back to my sleeve here, I currently have, after that round of reductions, I have 64 stitches all the way around, and I want to get to 42. So in order to do that, I need to lose 22 stitches, and I want to lose them evenly around the edge. So if I take my 22 and divide it into the 64, I get 2.9, which I'll round up to 3. So every third stitch around my edge, I need to work into the second stitch. So I work 1 regular stitch, and then I work 2 together, a regular stitch, 2 together, a regular stitch, 2 together, all the way around. So here we go. I've chained one already and marked that chain, and we go for 1 regular, and then the 2 together. 1 regular on its own, 2 together. So if your number was 4, if your calculated number came at 4, you'd work 3 and 4 together. So you'd work 1, 2 separately, 3 and 4 together, and you'd do that the whole way around. So work your own numbers. That'll get you your stitch count that you need. By the end of here I should have 42. After we've done this reduction round, we need to follow up again with a regular round. I'll meet you back there. After those reductions, I now have my stitch count of 42 that I needed, and I've got a nice poofy effect on the sleeve, which I'm happy with. So from here, I just need to work the bottom half of the sleeve. So I go back to my 3mm hook, and I'm going to make a chain the length that I need for this lower section. For me, that's going to be 70 chains. It's going to be about 34 centimetres. That's my 70 chains. I'm going to chain an extra one to turn, and I'm going to work my way back down with a row of single crochet, exactly the same as I did with the bottom band, all the way down to the base. Back at the base, I'm going to slip stitch twice to the next 2 stitches along. If you find you're getting lost with these slip stitches, just at this point take a stitch marker and mark the next stitch, and then you know for certain which is the first of your 2 slip stitches when you get back down to this end. So moving back up this new section, third stitch from the hook, first 2 of the slip stitches, so the third one along, and back loop single crochet, and that's the pattern. Back loop single crochet all the way up, chain 1, turn around, back loop single crochet all the way down, slip stitch twice into the base, and work all the way around until you've got a sleeve to join. And now I have a sleeve to join. Gone all the way around, work the length in rows, and in exactly the same way as I joined the bottom band, I'm going to join this sleeve section. So I have the start chain on this side, so the remaining loop from there into there, into the back loop from the last row that I've just worked, and pull through a slip stitch, and same again, remaining loop from the start chain, back loop from the last row, and slip stitch. And I'm going to work that way all the way down to seam up this sleeve section, and then when I get to the end I will pull through a chain 1 and cut my yarn. all seamed up, and this is what I have. Looks a little odd when it's not on the body, but this sleeve section does stretch a lot because of the back loop stitch. So I'm going to do this whole thing again over on the other side for the second sleeve, and then I just need to add a little rose. To make a rose, I'm going to use a 3mm hook. I'm going to start with a slip knot, and I'm going to make 62 chains. There's 62 chains. I'm going to chain an extra one to turn. I'm not going to work into that turning chain, so I'm going to start from the second chain from my hook and make a single crochet. And then I'm going to make another single crochet into every chain all the way down for this first row. So I should have 62 single crochets at the end. And here are my 62 single crochets. So next I chain 3, and then from the 5th stitch from my hook, including these chains, so 1, 2, 3 for the chains, and then 4 and 5. Into that 5th stitch I'm going to make a single crochet. And there you can see I've created a little gap. So I chain 2, I'm going to skip the next stitch into the one after that. I'm going to make a single crochet. Again I will chain 2, skip the next stitch into the one after that, a single crochet. I'm going to work that way the whole way down for this row 2. At the end I should have 31 little spaces. At the end of row 2 I have 31 little chain 2 spaces, and I've counted them to make absolutely sure. So on to row 3. I'm going to chain 1, and this time the chain 1 counts as the first stitch. Into the chain 2 space, the first chain 2 space, make a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook into the chain 2 space, yarn over, pull through a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And I'm going to do that 4 more times, so I've got 5 half double crochets in this chain 2 space. There we go, and then I'm going to finish off this petal with a single crochet, again into the chain 2 space. And that's petal number 1. A single crochet, 5 half doubles, and another single. Alright, into the next chain 2 space, I'm going to make a single crochet, and that gives me a spacer between petals. Onto the next petal, single crochet into the next chain 2 space, followed by 5 half doubles. 1, 2, and where am I? 3, 4 and 5, and finish that off with a single. Petal number 2. Again, add the spacer into the next chain 2 space and go on to petal number 3. That's going to be made in exactly the same way. A single crochet, 5 half doubles, single crochet. That's 3 petals, all of equal size. Next I add my spacer, single crochet into the next chain 2 space, and then into the next chain 2 space I'm going to start the next petal with a half double, and then I'm going to follow up with a double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through those last 2 loops. So I need 5 of those in total, 5 doubles. What's that? 4? That's 4. So one more. And then a half double to finish this petal. Oops, sorry, fell off camera. Okay, so you can see it's slightly bigger. Now I need 6 of these in total. So I need 5 more, half double, 5 doubles, half double, and the single crochet spacer in between each. Now I have 3 little ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 medium ones, and I'm going to move on and make large petals next. I've already made the spacer, single crochet in that next chain 2 space. Into the next one I'm going to start with a half double crochet. Then I'm going to make a double crochet, and then I'm going to add 3 trebles, so yarn over twice, insert my hook, pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops, pull through the last 2 loops for a treble. So I need 3 of those. That's 2, and the third. I'm bringing down the other side with a double crochet, and then a half double. Oops, giving me issues. There we go. And that's the largest of the size we're going to do. So I need 7 of those in total, 6 more. Okay, I have all my petals, the large ones at the end here. I'm just going to slip stitch into this first chain again, just to close off at the end here. Okay, I'm going to just chain 1 for extra security, pull that tight, and I'm going to leave a big long tail end here because I need to sew up my petals and attach it to my top with this tail end. So that should do. Snip it there and pull that through. Before I go on to this next stage, I just weaved in my start tail to get that out of the way, so you might want to go ahead and do that. I didn't weave in obviously the end I'm going to sew with. I've actually threaded that through my yarn needle. I have this weird looking upholstery needle. You don't have to use one of these, a straight one will be fine. I just happen to have this and I thought I'll never get a chance to use it otherwise, so why not? Right, going back to the smaller petals, or right down at the other end, I need to wind these around and form as if I'm forming a coil with the start chain on this side here, and it needs to be fairly tight. I'm actually going to start back again on those. It needs to be fairly tight because this is where we're going to sew through at the end. So around and around, creating a flat base on this side, and just keeping it nice and neat. all the way around to take a bit of time. Just coiling this up. Nearly there. And that's it. So it's nice and flat on this side. And then we have all the petals arranged on this side. So I'm going to sew this next. I just need to make sure that my petals are arranged in a position that I'm happy with. So I'm just going to have a little fidget with that. Make sure they're not all aligned behind each other. A little overlapping. Okay, that looks good. Alright. That's going to do it. So turn it back over. Grab up your yarn needle. And I'm just going to feed it through as many of these rows as I can. Through one side, all the way through and out at the other. Just pick up as many rows as possible and come out the other side and give it a tug. And I'm going to do this a few times at various different spots to get as good a security as I can get on all the petals on the other side. So in through this side, just fidget it through as many as I can get it through and come out somewhere else. Give it a tug. There we go. So in through again. There's no rule to how many times I'm going to do this, it's just until I feel like it's good and secure. You can feel that it feels more sort of firm. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart. So just keep going until it feels like it's not going to fall apart. A couple more, I think. In we go again. Doesn't want to go through. So it's getting a little bit more rigid already. Give it a fair old tug. Oh, it's gonna come through. I'm gonna win. Come on. Got it. I win. Okay. Maybe one more. There we go. It's going to be even harder. And tug. Come on. Not too bad. Okay. I reckon that's got it. It seems nice and secure. All good. Okay. I'm going to just weave this into the centre at the back here, just so that I can attach it from the centre. And that's it. I went ahead and attached my little flower, just using the yarn needle. Weaved through back and forth a few times through the flower and the top. Then I secured with a couple of knots and weaved in the end. All done. Actually, just need to weave in all of my other ends and then I'm really done. After all of that, you should have something that looks like this. I hope you found the video helpful and I really hope you go on and make one of your own. If you do like the content, please let me know by giving a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe and hit the notification bell for a heads up on any future projects. Thank you so much for watching today.